I was to tear up the marriage application with Ryan Carter. I deliberately pretended not to notice the flirty glances between Ryan and my sister-in-law. I purposely didn't stop her, drunk as she was, from walking into the wrong room. I intentionally stepped aside to give them space and even brought people over myself to catch them red-handed. Watching those two soulmates rolling around in bed together. It was me who personally made the match between Ryan Carter and Emily. In the end, Emily became the factory director's wife while I answered the country's call and went south to help build Shenzhen. Everyone pitied me for losing such a good match, but only I knew that behind the glamour was a life of endless exhaustion and being drained dry. Now that I'm back with a second chance, I say to hell with being the factory director's wife. I boarded the Reform-era southbound train and bought 10 apartments in Shenzhen in one go. From now on, the rule is simple. If it's not your business, stay out of it. Ryan Carter looked me up and down as if sizing up a sow for breeding. His look of disdain was completely unfiltered. Sign it. He flung the marriage application at me. My heart clenched as a flood of memories from my previous life rushed in. Back then, I had been introduced to Ryan through work. Everyone said he was well-educated and that both his parents were dual-income workers at the textile factory. They said he was destined to be a big leader and that marrying him was the kind of luck you prayed for over 8 lifetimes. So, every time I saw him, I'd watch his face carefully, acting humble and submissive. The day we were set to turn in the marriage form, I had purposely worn a bright red polka dot dress and tied up my braided hair with a red ribbon. But instead of praise, I got a cold bucket of humiliation. So tacky. You look like some country matchmaker. Absolutely embarrassing. It wasn't until later that I found out that Emily had cried in his arms the night before, all night, and told him not to show me even a hint of kindness. I suppressed the hatred in my eyes and whispered, "Let's wait a little longer. It's not the right time yet." Hearing that, Ryan stood up in frustration. He kept adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, impatiently rolling up his sleeves as he paced back and forth inside the registry office. I knew he didn't even need glasses. He wore them just because Emily once said she liked men who looked scholarly. "I'll wait alone. If you've got things to do, go ahead and leave." Maybe it was because I wasn't showing any temper, but Ryan actually showed a rare sliver of patience. "Fine. From now on, you'll be the eldest daughter-in-law of the Carter family. We won't treat you unfairly, but after you move in, you better show proper respect to your sister-in-law and her son. Don't ever upset or hurt her again. Otherwise, you can forget about staying." Then Ryan turned and left in a rush. I didn't argue, didn't even want to. Because things like this had already happened countless times before. In my past life, I tried to explain to him. I said I just wanted to get along with Emily, that I never bullied her. But every time she teared up and let out a few pitiful sobs, Ryan would throw all the blame on me. Said I was jealous. Said I was uncultured. It wasn't until after we were married that I slowly came to realize Ryan's concern for Emily went far beyond what a brother-in-law should have. On our wedding night, Emily suddenly cried about having a nightmare. Ryan immediately left me behind and rushed to her bedside, comforting her the whole night. As he continued climbing the career ladder, he handed over all his salary to Emily and her son. Meanwhile, I wore the same pair of cloth shoes until they had holes, patching and mending them over and over while taking care of his parents like a servant. Even after I got pregnant, the food stamps and meat rations at home still went to Emily and her son. She ate until her mouth was greasy, while I was so skinny I didn't even have enough breast milk. In the end, I hemorrhaged severely during childbirth, leaving me with lasting health issues. After so many hardships, I finally gave birth to a daughter. But in the end, on my deathbed, my own daughter turned to Emily with joy and called her mom. She said, "Finally, that ugly old hag is dead." If it weren't for Dad's reputation, I would have kicked her out a long time ago. Only someone graceful like Mom Emily deserves my dad. Just look at you, fat and disgusting. Thinking of this, I let out a cold, mocking laugh. All the weakness and patience from my past life had only bought me a lifetime of bullying and humiliation. Ryan Carter, didn't you always say I got in the way of your once-in-a-lifetime love? I picked up the marriage application and tore it to shreds without hesitation. In this life, I would personally tie the two of them, those shameless scumbags, together. I wanted to see just how deep their so-called love would run without everything I had sacrificed. The moment I left the registration office, I turned and headed straight back to the textile factory. When I stated my request, the director's eyes widened in disbelief. "What did you say? You want to sign the agreement to go to Shenzhen?" I nodded, gaze unwavering. "Lucy," he said, calling me by name, "have you lost your mind? You're a permanent employee at the textile factory, a position people would kill for. Going to Shenzhen for economic development means doing business, working to the bone, constantly on the move. Even men don't want to go, and you, just a young woman, you really think this through?" I answered calmly, "Isn't the country promoting reform and opening up now? The leaders are calling for talent to go south and help develop the coastal cities. This is an opportunity. I want to try." The director frowned. "Aren't you and Ryan getting married? Did you talk this over with him?" "This is my decision." "It has nothing to do with him," I said firmly. "Besides, the country needs people right now. How could I ignore that and throw it all away just because of some silly romance?" The director looked at me, then sighed. "Lucy, I really admire your spirit." "I do. But still, construction is one thing. Shenzhen's just a poor fishing village. There's no way it'll actually grow into anything. And you're a girl after all. You're about to get married. Do you think the Carter family will allow you to go?" I let out a light laugh. "What's wrong with being a girl? Didn't our leader say women hold up half the sky? Wherever the country needs building, I'll go. Besides, Ryan can't stop me. He doesn't even have what it takes to try." After signing the resignation paperwork, I received a sum of money. The factory director didn't know that I had never actually submitted the marriage application. Still, after a moment's thought, I headed over to the Carters' home. Just as I reached the alley near their house, I heard a burst of flirtatious laughter. I looked up and saw Emily doubled over in laughter, practically draped across Ryan's body. Her son, Tommy, was hugging Ryan's leg, pestering him to tell a story. My former in-laws were watching the scene with satisfied smiles as their precious grandson shoveled rice soaked in lard into his mouth. His lips were greasy and they looked so pleased, as if scenes like this were normal. Clearly, no one in that family saw anything wrong with the blatant intimacy in front of them. Then I stepped in and shattered the warm little moment. Emily awkwardly pulled away from Ryan and his face immediately turned cold. He looked at me with anger in his eyes. Emily sat there, playing the delicate, pitiful woman. Even though she was the mother of an 8-year-old child, her face still had that innocent sweetness, while her body was curvy and alluring. She really was a stunning beauty. Tears welled up in her eyes as she put on an apologetic look. "Lucy, I know this meat was brought over by you. It was supposed to be for your wedding banquet. A person like me, someone who brings bad luck, really doesn't deserve to eat it. But Ryan has a soft heart. He couldn't stand seeing his own nephew go hungry, so he cooked some pork fat with rice for him. Don't worry, there'll still be meat at your banquet tomorrow." She made sure to emphasize the phrase brings bad luck, and sure enough, Ryan lost it the next second. He already signed the marriage application. That means he's part of our family now. His stuff is our stuff. What's so untouchable about that? Ryan shot to his feet, towering over me. "There's still meat in the kitchen," he barked. "Go in there and cook. Emily and Tommy are hungry. Can't you read the room?" In the past, I'd always been timid and obedient. I even volunteered to cook for their family for an entire month. Ryan thought he had me under control and barely bothered to keep up appearances anymore, especially now that he believed I had already signed the marriage papers. But I said calmly, "If you want to eat, cook it yourself." "What, none of you have hands?" Everyone froze, especially Ryan, who had always barked orders at me like I was their servant. They froze on the spot. "Aren't you Ryan's fiancée now? Isn't it your duty as the Carter family's daughter-in-law to serve your in-laws and listen to your husband? What kind of nonsense are you saying right now? Duty?" I repeated. "What do you mean by duty? In my past life, I was far too reasonable. I spent half my life shackled by trivial family obligations, and in the end, I didn't get even a sliver of gratitude. I let out a scornful laugh. You want to know what I'm saying? I'm speaking like a human being. Don't you understand plain language? You were born to your parents. I was born to mine. Whoever their parents are, let them take care of them. What kind of rule says a daughter-in-law must serve her in-laws? Even the national leaders have said it. Women hold up half the sky. My life has its own value. I'm not about to become a servant for your entire miserable family. Ryan's pride took a direct hit. His face turned red with anger as he stood up. In my past life, I thought his tall young figure was so impressive. But now, he just looked like a joke. Lucy, if you don't cook, you really think I'll be nice to you at tomorrow's wedding feast? He snapped. I gave him a calm glance, then strode toward the kitchen. See? Now, that's more like it. Ryan started, but the words died in his throat as he saw me walk out carrying a slab of ribs and several pounds of pork in one hand and a bag of rice in the other. I walked out of the kitchen at an easy pace, never stopping as I headed straight back to my parents' home. The meat and grain my parents had scrimped and saved for me, carefully rationing their own food, was going to be devoured by these heartless leeches? No way. Behind me, I could hear Emily crying and Ryan's parents yelling in complaint. Then came the crash of dishes shattering against the floor. I didn't feel a hint of panic, just satisfaction. Because I knew that even if I hadn't caused a scene, there was no way Ryan and I were getting married tomorrow. In my past life, I swallowed my pride and cooked a full meal for their entire family using ingredients brought over by my own parents. That very night, Emily threw a tantrum claiming she had stomach pain and her son Tommy rolled on the floor screaming saying he'd eaten something bad. Ryan panicked and spent a fortune hiring a private car to rush them into town for treatment. The next day, all the neighbors showed up to celebrate the wedding. I sat at home, my face hidden under a red bridal veil, waiting shyly for Ryan. Instead, what I got were 2 vicious slaps across the face. The doctor said Emily and her son were food poisoned. Ryan said, "We only ate your cooking yesterday. If you didn't poison them, who else could it have been? You wretched woman. How could I have married someone so cruel? Emily and Tommy are still suffering in the hospital. What right do you have to step into my home?" As he yelled, Ryan tore at my clothes and kicked me twice in the stomach. You disgrace. You haven't even entered the family yet and you're already wreaking havoc. Marrying you was the worst decision of my life. This wedding is off. You're cursed. The neighbors, not knowing the full story, were completely swayed by Ryan's accusations. I sat on the ground, stunned, crying uncontrollably. Only a few kind-hearted neighbor ladies helped dress me properly and carried me to the next room. But by then, the marriage papers had already been signed. Divorce would cost more than I could bear. Back then, I foolishly thought that if I gave my all to his family after we were married, they would eventually see my worth. Looking back now, I was so naive. Some people are human, but the Carters? They were monsters. Blood-sucking leeches who would drain you dry and still gnaw on your bones. After bringing the meat and rice home, I explained everything to my parents. My mom cried for me, heartbroken. When she heard I hadn't signed the marriage certificate, she finally let out a long sigh of relief. I was getting ready to confront the Carter family properly the next day, but I didn't expect all of them to end up in the hospital that very night. Turns out, my little outburst had thrown everything off. Ryan's parents were furious. Ryan didn't know how to cook, so naturally the job fell to Emily. But Emily, she was the delicate, pampered type. When had she ever set foot in a kitchen? I heard she cooked up a bowl of salty, bitter rice mixed with vegetables and tried to stir-fry greens with raw lard. The vegetables weren't even washed and the pork fat was uncooked. It got the whole Carter family sick enough that they had to be rushed to the town clinic. The wedding was delayed, of course, and the entire family was in such misery they were practically falling apart. They even spent nearly 200 yuan, almost a whole year's worth of living expenses for that many people. Right away, gossip started spreading through the alley. People said Emily was pretty but useless, that she'd already cursed the Carter's eldest son to death and now she was going to bring down the rest of the family, too. Everyone whispered the same thing. Emily was the Carter family's Death Star. After Ryan's parents came back, their attitude toward Emily turned lukewarm. Originally, my family had agreed not to ask for any bride price. We even brought over a pile of food and meat ration coupons. My mom had shouted with pride that she gave me an imported sewing machine. All of that was supposed to be a windfall for the Carter family. But now, with the bride not even through the door yet, they had already lost 200 yuan. Ryan's parents started circling around outside our house like they had nothing better to do, but they never spoke to me. They hoped I'd take the hint, pack up, and obediently move in to cook and clean for them. I acted like I didn't see a thing. Every day, I still went to work and came home on time, just waiting for my notice to leave for Shenzhen. Ryan, meanwhile, was overjoyed. He started pretending to be deaf and dumb, never once mentioning the wedding, and even spoke up for Emily. As for Emily, she began cooking and doing laundry, voluntarily taking on the role of serving her in-laws. But she'd been spoiled her whole life, especially by Ryan, who pampered her beyond reason. One day, she set the kitchen on fire. 2 days later, she got frostbite from washing clothes. Every night she cried and whined, and Ryan immediately told her to stop working altogether. Ryan's parents, already old and worn out, had no choice but to return to doing the housework themselves. Eventually, they couldn't take it anymore and came looking for me. But every time I saw them, I ran, never giving them a chance to talk to me. Afterward, they'd return home sulking, faces drawn and long expressions like they were carrying the weight of the world. Whenever anyone asked them what was going on, I'd put on a tearful act and start complaining pitifully. And just like that, the rumors in the alley started flying even faster. Oh wow, that Carter boy hasn't even married his fiancée yet, but he sure is warm to his sister-in-law. Isn't that the truth? Who else in this alley dresses as fashionably as Emily? You see what she's wearing? That's city-grade fabric. Only real urban folks can afford that. What a joke. She already cursed the Carter family's oldest son to death and now she's being spoiled by the younger one. She gets rice and meat every day, doesn't lift a finger. Why doesn't lightning just strike her down? They say the Sioux girl didn't end up marrying him after all. Honestly, good for her. Marrying into that family? They'd suck the marrow right out of your bones sooner or later. Exactly. Lucy Shu is such a capable young woman. She's one of our top workers in the factory. Thank goodness she didn't end up with them. The gossip spread like wildfire. Some people even came straight to my door to ask questions, but I intentionally stayed silent. I didn't explain a thing. Eventually, the rumors reached the factory, too. The management spoke to Ryan more than once. In the end, even half of his salary that month was docked. Then, one day, Ryan showed up at my house with his whole family in tow. I didn't let them inside. I met them outside the door. "Oh Lucy, come on now," Ryan's parents said. "Haven't you made enough of a fuss? Isn't it time to go home with Ryan?" They gave Ryan a nudge and with an annoyed expression, he handed me a roll of peach pink fabric. "Here. Emily said girls would like this color. She picked it out just for you." I raised my eyebrows, sneering inwardly. Peach pink? What was that supposed to be? A joke? That was the color worn by ancient brothel girls and modern streetwalkers outside beauty salons. Emily was clearly trying to provoke me. Ryan spoke again. "Enough is enough, okay? You marry a chicken, you live like a chicken. You marry a dog, you live like a dog. So, I was a little cold to you before, at least I'm real. I'm not like other men who just sugarcoat everything. That's not how real life works. You've already married into my family. You need to respect my parents and take care of Emily and Tommy. Cook, do laundry, the usual. If you don't, then you're being unfilial. People will talk behind your back, understand? I work hard every single day. I'm going to be a factory director someday. If you can't handle everything, then just quit your job. Especially once you have kids, I doubt you'll have time to care for Emily and her son. Anyway, relax. As my wife, you won't be treated badly." Emily stepped out from behind Ryan, gently rubbing her waist. "Lucy, these past few days I've been doing the chores and I finally understand how hard it's been for you. I really can't handle this stuff. My hands have never done such rough work. You're naturally gifted. You're used to this kind of thing. If I've ever wronged you, then you can hit me or scold me. But you can't just keep dragging this out and refusing to marry into the Carter family. Emily said. I'm doing this for your own good. If people hear about this, what will they say? It'll ruin your reputation. I glanced at her. It was the dead of winter and she'd intentionally worn thin clothes so her hands were bright red from the cold. Sure enough, the moment Ryan saw her like that, his heart melted and he rushed to take her hands, breathing warm air on them. Without drawing attention, I opened the door a little wider and let out a faint innocent smile. But there was no emotion in my heart as I said loudly, Ryan Carter, are you out of your mind? When did I ever sign a marriage certificate? Don't you dare come here trying to ruin my reputation. What do you mean your wife? What do you mean part of the Carter family? Please, spare me. Disgusting. Don't drag me into your mess. I still plan to marry someone decent in the future. Ryan's face changed instantly. His eyes widened. What are you saying? Didn't we go to the registration office together and turn in the marriage application? I signed it. A look of panic flashed across his face. He seemed to suddenly realize something. His voice softened. Lucy, I know I've had a bad attitude lately. It's caused people to say awful things about you, but I know you still have feelings for me. Otherwise, why would you have been so persistent with me before? We're a perfect match. Our families are well matched and even the fortune teller said our signs align perfectly. Don't throw a childish tantrum now. I sneered. Oh, so now that you're not sure you have me, you change your tune? I'm at fault now? You're a permanent worker at the textile factory. You earn wages that support the family. You should keep that job. I'll help more with things at home so you're not handling everything alone. I couldn't believe I didn't realize it in my past life. Ryan's ability to change his face was faster than the weather. To me now, this entire act was nothing but a clown show. Absolutely ridiculous. I laughed out loud. Too bad. I said, I already quit that job. I signed the National Talent Relocation Agreement. My train to Shenzhen leaves the day after tomorrow. No way. Who told you to do that? He said, stunned. You can't just transfer your job without your spouse's consent. I don't agree. Let's see who dares let you go. Lucy, you're being unreasonable. Come home with me. I'll let go of everything that's happened so far. Ryan's body trembled and he clenched his lips. In his angry gaze, I could even see a trace of panic, maybe even genuine concern. I swung the door wide open, revealing the courtyard now crowded with curious neighbors. All of them staring with surprise at the scene before them. I raised my voice, let me make this clear for everyone. I never signed that marriage certificate. If you don't believe me, go ask the registration office. They'll tell you straight up. Ryan was already in love with his sister-in-law. A real man owns up to what he's done. Don't try to pin it on me. Ryan's face turned red, then white, then red again. But to my surprise, he didn't yell at me. He didn't even try to deny it. Under the pressing eyes of the neighbors, I saw something in him crack. Strangely, he didn't jump to defend Emily either. Instead, he grabbed my hand and anxiously asked, can that agreement be changed? You can't go to Shenzhen. If you leave, what am I supposed to do? Or maybe I'll talk to the director and get a new relocation agreement. I'll go with you. Is he out of his mind? Right in front of all the neighbors, I had torn his mask to shreds and dragged the Carter family name through the mud. And yet, he wasn't even angry. Now he was talking about going to Shenzhen with me? This wasn't what I expected at all. Before I could figure out what was going on, the aunties from the alley pushed their way through the crowd and stood protectively in front of me, shielding me from the Carter family. They jabbed fingers in Ryan's direction. What do you think you're doing? She already said she didn't sign anything. Lucy's a pure, respectable young lady and she's got ambition. She wants to serve her country. A girl like that, and you think you deserve her? You think we're all blind? You stare at Emily like you're ready to drown in her. It's disgusting. A younger brother lusting after his own sister-in-law. 10 years ago, that'd land you in prison. And what's this nonsense about women having to obey men? This is a new era now. One of the aunties snapped. Women earn their own money. Women have education. Women are the backbone of the household. That's right. Another added. And with a family like yours, you still think you deserve to marry Lucy? Huh, what a joke. You're still dreaming about becoming a factory director. A voice scoffed from the crowd. You were just publicly criticized by the factory this month. What company would hire someone who messes around with his sister-in-law to lead anything? Forget being director. If word gets out, you might not even keep your job. Get lost, all of you. Go home. If we catch you loitering around Lucy's house again, we'll call the police for harassment. See how you like sitting in a cell. The alley exploded with voices, fiery, fierce and unapologetic. These weren't just neighbors sticking up for someone they'd watched grow up. They were furious at how the Carter family had treated women, like livestock, like property, like nothing. And with the reforms spreading across the country, new ideas and progressive thought were taking root, especially among women. We could now read newspapers, magazines, even foreign literature. Life was still tough, but our minds, trapped for so long, were finally waking up. Especially the women who had once believed all they were good for was staying home and serving their husbands. They were realizing they had value, too. Maybe the aunties weren't just protecting me. Maybe they were also trying to reclaim something they'd lost in their own youth. My mom gently patted my shoulder, pulling my head to rest against her. Lucy, she said softly. You've grown up and I think you're right. A woman's fate doesn't need to depend on a man. A woman can carve out her own path through her own efforts. If you want to go to Shenzhen, your dad and I support you. The neighbors nodded along. Lucy's always been the most promising girl in the alley. She went to college. She's educated, smart. We believe in her. She's going to make something of herself and show those men what women are really capable of. As they all talked over one another, the deputy director of the neighboring compressor plant, Mr. Chen, took the lead and helped organize support. One by one, people pulled out money they had saved at home. Some gave 1 yuan, others 5, even 10 or 20. Seeing the cash in the hands of the aunties and older sisters, my eyes started to sting with tears. Truthfully, going to Shenzhen had been a rushed decision. At first, all I wanted was to escape this toxic marriage, but because I'd lived this life once already, I knew Shenzhen was a land of opportunity. The country's reform and opening up policy wasn't just talk, it was real with huge investments and serious determination behind it. The hardships at the beginning would be temporary. In time, with the reform's progress, Shenzhen would blossom. The city was already becoming a front line for coastal development and international trade. Holding Mr. Chen's hand firmly, I made up my mind. I would make something of myself in Shenzhen and I'd bring opportunity back for women from my hometown, too. 2 days later, just after I'd received my train ticket and packed everything, Ryan came knocking again. I already knew what had happened after he left our house. He'd been disciplined once more. He used to be an office director, but now he'd been demoted to a regular staff member. Not only did he lose his leadership perks, but they also docked 10 yuan from his monthly pay, over 100 yuan a year. People said they'd heard shouting in the Carter household late at night, angry yelling from Ryan's parents and bitter crying from Emily. The next morning, someone saw Emily out at dawn doing laundry with bruises on her forehead. Ryan was walking with a limp. Rumors spread that Ryan's parents had asked Emily to move out, afraid she'd ruin their son's future. Everyone was saying the two were finished. But when I looked at Ryan's face now, full of guilt, I didn't believe a word of it because I'd spent over a decade with him in my last life. I knew him far too well. He was a hypocrite. Cold, always willing to sacrifice others for his own gain. And his twisted love for Emily didn't start yesterday. There was no way it had disappeared that quickly. Ryan handed me a basket of eggs. Lucy, he said, I was wrong before. I didn't appreciate you enough, but from now on, I'll make it up to you. I'll keep chasing you until you forgive me. Then, as if this were a romantic gesture, he pulled a few hair clips from somewhere and tried to pin them in my hair. I bought these with my own paycheck. He said. I know I never gave you anything before. That was my mistake. You're so gentle and beautiful. These would look perfect on you. I let out a cold laugh. I slapped the hair clips out of his hand and stared at the scarf around his neck. With a calm voice, I said, "That scarf, it's new, isn't it? I've never seen it before." Ryan immediately panicked. He yanked the scarf off and hid it behind his back. "Oh, I've had this one for a while. I just never wore it until now. I figured since I was coming to see you, I'd wear it." "Yeah, right. I'd seen that pattern before in my last life." It was the exact one Emily had pointed out to him at the market. I glanced at the alley behind Ryan and saw a familiar figure flash by. I curved my lips into a smirk. Then I deliberately stepped closer to him, leaned in and whispered, "You can afford to buy real leather shoes for your dear sister-in-law. Those go for more than 50 you on a pair. But now you think you can win me back with some cheap hair clips? Wow, you're really good at this game." I had lived through this life once already. I was no longer some innocent girl. The deep regret and affection Ryan thought he was showing, it was nothing more than a calculated performance. I took the basket of eggs from him and said, "I'll accept these. Consider it payment for all the meals I cooked for your family last month." There was a flicker of hurt in Ryan's eyes. He couldn't understand how, in just a few short weeks, I had gone from the girl who used to chase after him to someone so cold and indifferent. "If you want leather shoes, I'll go into town and get you 2 pairs right now. You can switch them out whichever you like, okay?" "Lucy, I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry." Ryan's pain looked real, more real than in my past life. Maybe he really had started to reflect on things. But so what? A man's regret? That's nothing special to me. I couldn't care less. Still, I purposely leaned sideways as I took the basket from his hands, gave him a wink, and grinned widely because I knew exactly who was watching from behind. Ryan really believed Emily was some sweet, innocent little flower. After everything I went through in my past life, I knew better than anyone. When that woman lost it, she was more terrifying than anyone I'd ever met. The next day, Ryan came looking for me again. This time he brought 2 pairs of leather shoes, both in the most popular styles. I didn't even glance at them. I threw them aside immediately. I had no time for him anymore. I was busy studying English every spare moment, preparing for my move south. That night, the factory held a farewell banquet for a few of us heading to Shenzhen. They set up over 20 banquet tables in the open space outside the plant. The factory paid for it all. I stood with the other 2 boys who were heading south, each of us wearing a big red flower pinned to our chest as we shook hands and received blessings from the factory leaders and neighborhood elders. The entire alley had come out to see us off. People had tears in their eyes. Everyone brought food, grains, vegetables, meat, even good wine to share and toast together. As I stood on stage adjusting the microphone, I scanned the crowd until I spotted exactly who I expected. Emily. She'd been waiting for this night, knowing everyone would be out and the streets would be empty. Sure enough, she looked off balance, her cheeks flushed unnaturally red, and she swayed her way straight toward Ryan. Ryan looked nervous. With so many people around, he kept his distance from her. But I caught every glance, every twitch of hesitation. I cleared my throat and switched on the microphone. "Dear neighbors, respected factory leaders," I said cheerfully, "since we've all come together for such a rare occasion, why not take this chance to throw a dance party? Let's really liven things up tonight." With that, I turned on the music from the broadcasting station. A soft, dreamy melody filled the air. I dimmed the big lights halfway. The atmosphere turned cozy and romantic. People began to dance, sing, and perform. It became a joyful, harmonious celebration. But in the shadows, I saw Emily already slumped against Ryan's chest, the 2 of them kissing beneath the soft glow of the night. I curled my lips into a cold smile and turned the volume up louder. The dance went on for half an hour. By 8:30, the wind picked up, bringing a chill with it. Sensing the timing was right, I turned off the music. "Thank you, everyone, for your support," I said. "I've made some brown sugar tea at home. If you don't mind, please come over and have a cup with me." Everyone responded happily, gathering up their things and following me down the alley. I knew very well the path to my house would take us right past the Carter home. And tonight, every single household in the alley had come out to play. So while the rest of the alley was pitch black, the light coming from the Carter family's courtyard stood out. Didn't the Carters come to the send-off party, too? Why is their light still on? Someone asked. Maybe someone in the house was too embarrassed to show their face after everything that's happened, another neighbor chuckled. Probably just stayed home and hid. Everyone laughed and kept walking without much thought. But we had barely taken a few more steps when we all heard something, moaning and obscene cries coming from the Carters' courtyard. The entire group froze in place. One of the younger guys couldn't help blurting out, "Whose woman is that so loud?" The older aunties didn't bother being polite. Who else could it be making such filthy noises? That's the most shameless widow in the whole alley, of course. She lost her husband and still dares to do something this disgraceful? Come on, let's go see what's happening. We can't let someone like that keep living in our neighborhood. With that, the group pushed open the Carter family's courtyard gate. I hadn't even squeezed through the crowd when I heard several of the aunties screaming inside. By the time I managed to push in far enough to see what was happening, I was completely stunned. I had known that Emily and Ryan were sleeping together. But I never expected them to be this reckless, completely naked, tangled together in the chicken coop. Ryan clearly hadn't been that drunk. He sobered up quickly and rushed to cover himself with a pile of clothes. Emily wasn't so lucky. She had drunk far more, and judging by her glazed expression, someone had likely added something to her drink. Her eyes were hazy, her body slack, and she couldn't even stay conscious properly. A cold wind blew through, and instead of pulling away, she started moaning again, rubbing up against Ryan while saying all sorts of filthy things. "My sweet baby, didn't you say I'm the one you love the most? Then why are you pulling away now? If others get to be your wife, why can't I? What do I lack compared to that untouched little girl? I want you to marry me. I can't survive even a minute without you. We're in love. Why can't we be together out in the open?" Every word that came out of her mouth made the surrounding crowd frown. Ryan, for his part, looked utterly disgusted. He clearly wanted to distance himself from her as fast as possible. "You crazy woman," he hissed. "What did you drug me with? You dragged me here. You've completely ruined me, you filthy whore." A few factory officials stepped in, slapping Emily awake. She opened her eyes, took one look at the crowd, and then screamed, rolled her eyes, and passed out cold. There she was, completely naked in a chicken coop. No one dared get close. Everyone either looked away in disgust or turned and left to avoid the awkwardness. Eventually, Ryan's mother couldn't take it anymore and dragged Emily back into the house herself. My mom pulled me away and took me home, both of us covering our mouths and bursting into laughter the moment we got through the door. Looking out, we saw the alley lights slowly go out one by one. But I knew every single household would be buzzing all night. The next morning, I packed up my things and got ready to head to the train station. What I didn't expect was for Emily to show up at my door. She looked nothing like her usual elegant self. Her once beautiful hair was tangled and matted with blood. Her eyes were bloodshot, dark circles bruised under them. Her cheeks were scratched, scabbed with dried blood. "Lucy Shue," she spat. "I know it was you. You just stood there smiling while they beat me to death, didn't you? You must have been thrilled. You're so damn evil." I almost laughed out loud. "Oh, so I'm the one who shoved you and Ryan into bed together now? You think I was the one rolling around with him in a chicken coop? You've been pretending to be some delicate angel while your heart's been rotting for years." Emily's eyes locked onto mine. Suddenly, she burst out laughing. "You think you've won, but you haven't. I'll tell you one thing, Ryan has only ever loved me, just me. The one who isn't loved is the real fool here. I told you lost, but you didn't believe me. Fine, just wait and see." And in that moment, a strange chill crept up my spine. I had a very bad feeling. Before I could react, Emily suddenly pulled a knife from the lining of her torn cotton coat and drove it straight into her neck. Blood spilled across the ground instantly. The crowd gasped and screamed. Ryan arrived moments later. He rushed over, holding Emily in his arms, and looked up at me, still standing there with my suitcase. His lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but before he could, Emily began speaking in a weak, trembling voice that pulled his attention back. "Ryan, if we're destined not to be together, then what's the point of living? I might as well die and end it all. Let my death bless you, too, instead." She coughed up a mouthful of blood. I just stood there, watching it all with cold eyes. Truly, beautiful women are dangerous. They're ruthless to others and even more ruthless to themselves. Ryan immediately broke down. He clutched her tight and cried out, "No, I won't let you die. Even if the whole world is against us, even if I lose my job, I'll still be with you. I'll take care of you and Tommy. Hang on, sweetheart. Stay alive and I'll marry you, I swear." His dramatic vow made the whole crowd frown. I watched the ambulance take the two of them away, then smiled and shook my head. Just like in my past life, Ryan never stood a chance against Emily. I saw clearly how she had avoided any vital organs. The knife had made a deep cut on the surface of her skin, enough to look horrifying, but nowhere near fatal. Emily knew how to manipulate a man's heart. She probably thought I'd be furious or devastated, thinking I still cared about Ryan, but in truth, I didn't care at all. Compared to my future and my career, Ryan wasn't even worth a thought. I walked confidently to the train station and boarded the southbound train to Shenzhen. In my previous life, Ryan treated me like an obstacle. Well, now the path was wide open for him and Emily. But without someone to manage their household, without a steady paycheck from the factory, and without the blessing of others, how long would their so-called love last? Especially as the reform deepened and factory benefits declined, Ryan could barely earn anything doing hard labor. And Emily? She clung to him day and night, spoiled and used to being pampered, demanding constant attention. What kind of happiness could come from a love like that? But none of it had anything to do with me anymore. I shook my head and let the past go. My eyes were on the future now. 20 years into the reform era, Shenzhen had risen from the ground like a miracle. And I, one of the first highly educated professionals to answer the country's call to develop the South, was given special training and support. I started off working in state-owned enterprises, participating in the construction of many major buildings across Shenzhen. Later, I started my own businesses, real estate development companies, architectural design firms. Thanks to my memories from my previous life and all the news I had absorbed back then, I had foresight. Before Shenzhen's major districts were even fully planned, I purchased 10 entire buildings in what would later become the city's most valuable areas at rock-bottom prices. When the spring breeze of economic opportunity blew through, I rose with it, becoming one of the wealthiest women in China and topping the list of female entrepreneurs. But my work kept me busy, and I rarely returned to my hometown. Still, I knew the rise of private enterprise, free trade, and export markets had brought massive pressure on the old state-owned factories. I could imagine how difficult life had become for the neighbors in our alley. In the first decade, I donated money and supplies. My neighbors were grateful and often called just to chat. During those calls, they gossiped to me about what had happened after I left. Ryan and Emily married soon after. Ryan lost his factory job and ended up shining shoes at a street stall just to support his entire family. His parents, once proud dual-income workers, were disciplined because of his scandal. Later, when the factory's retirement fund dried up, they received no pension. They blamed everything on Emily. Every day, they made her do laundry with cold water, criticized her cooking relentlessly, and treated her like dirt. But it was the life she had chosen. She had no one else to blame. So, she lived the life I had once lived, endlessly toiling as a servant to the whole family, her face yellowed from years over a greasy stove. She argued in the street over a few cents worth of vegetables, woke before dawn, and had no time to dress up. She didn't even know what hairstyles or clothing were in fashion anymore. Once, she had been refined and elegant, but the Carter family ground her down until she became just another worn-out housewife. Back then, she and Ryan had toasted under the moon, pretending to be cultured, romantic souls. But without me managing everything behind the scenes, Emily became a one-woman domestic army, doing all the chores, feeding the family, scrubbing and scraping to survive. There was no room left for elegance, no time for poetry or moonlight. Every day when Ryan came home, he would scream and vent at Emily like he'd gone mad. As the initial passion faded, their life together became a slow burn descent into misery. The two of them, once so desperate to be together, had become bitter enemies under the same roof. Emily placed all her hope on her son, Tommy. She forced him to wake up early every morning to study, pressured him to get into college, just like I had done in my past life. But Tommy, staring at his worn-out, yellow-faced mother, let out a roar that mirrored exactly what my own daughter had once screamed at me. "Fat cow, you're nothing but a useless fat cow. All you know is how to cook. What else do you even understand? What good can come from the son of someone like you? And you think I'm going to college? You'd have better luck betting on a pig to climb a tree." Those words shattered what was left of Emily's pride. Something inside her broke for good. She stopped caring about the house. She started messing around with other men, drinking, smoking, and using whatever money she could scrape up for herself. She never looked back, never asked about the home she'd once desperately fought for. The Carter household fell into chaos, constant yelling, fights, rage, resentment. One of their neighbors told me that Ryan's parents, and even Ryan himself, had been secretly asking around about me. They saw me giving food and money to other townsfolk, but never once to them. At first, they cursed me, accused me of being ungrateful. But later, the rage turned toward Emily. She stole the Carter family's lucky star, they said. If she hadn't thrown herself at my son, Lucy Sue would still be earning money for this family. We'd all be living in big villas in Shenzhen by now. Yeah, if I had an aunt that amazing, why would I even need to go to school? I'd already be a trust fund baby. My whole life's misery, it's all because of you, you stupid woman. How did I ever fall for you? Love? What a joke. I always loved Lucy. You just used your body to seduce me. The Carter courtyard constantly echoed with arguments and screams. Emily was often seen covered in bruises, her body a map of pain. But it didn't last forever. Eventually, the house quieted down for good. A massive fire burned the Carter family home to the ground. Everyone inside died, except Ryan. After that, Ryan left town. No one knew where he went. My husband, by contrast, was a man who deeply respected me. He never cared that our family didn't follow traditional gender roles. I was extroverted, he was quiet and thoughtful. We were a perfect match. After I had our child, he stayed home to care for them while helping me map out our future. He was wise, educated, and emotionally intelligent. We supported each other completely and treated one another with love and respect. Every year, we donated to Hope schools and sponsored girls in remote areas. Later, after discussing it with him, we decided to gift a home to every neighbor who had once helped me. I opened a massive supermarket and filled it with both domestic and imported goods, delicious, fun, practical. All the women from my old alley came to work there. I gave them the best insurance and even partial ownership in the business. That way, they held both financial power at home and the means to live a rich and independent life. Women hold up half the sky. Back then, it was just something they said to encourage me. Now, it had come true, word for word. When we brought the townsfolk to Shenzhen, I hosted a huge community celebration in our residential complex. Though many of them were older now, and I was in my early 40s, as the music floated through the air, we sang and danced like we were young again. Joy radiated through the crowd. As Lunar New Year approached, I handed every former neighbor a 50,000 yuan red envelope. They surrounded me with warm smiles and words of blessing. "President Su," they said, "you're the one who had the courage to dream. You made the bold decision to go to Shenzhen, and you ended up lifting our entire alley out of poverty." "That's right," someone else chimed in. "We were worried back then, but you really showed us what a strong woman can achieve. You built a whole empire from nothing. Thank goodness you never married into the Carter family. If you had, our country would have lost a great patriotic entrepreneur. Since the day you left, Lucy, our little alley's been telling stories about you. Every child here sees you as their hero. No, not just the kids. You're our hero, too, all of us women. You proved to the world that we're not just meant to serve our husbands or stand over a stove. We can build businesses. We can build lives of our own. The women I had once grown up with, girls who'd been just like me in their 20s, gathered around, eager to tell me all about their lives now. Some of the girls chose to study architecture. Others pursued geological surveying. Some went into physics and the arts. A few even started exploring the internet, diving into programming and computer science. Not one of them said their goal was to get married and build a family. All of them had begun to explore something bigger, the vast horizons of their own lives. When night fell, the celebration gradually came to an end. Some people were drunk, others simply satisfied, and everyone slowly returned to the community housing. My husband and I walked hand in hand across the plaza, enjoying the quiet evening. Suddenly, a ragged figure stumbled into view, a filthy, disheveled drunk. My bodyguards immediately tensed, surrounding us in a protective stance. My husband stepped in front of me and urged, "Get in the car now." But I had already seen his face. "Stand down," I said to the bodyguards. "Ryan?" I asked. There was no reply from across the street, but I knew it was him. He looked about the same age as me, but his skin was darkened and weathered. His hands and feet calloused and cracked. His toes were twisted and bent, so badly deformed he could barely walk in a straight line. He limped with every step. It seemed he now lived by begging. His entire body had aged horribly, like he'd been drained of life. He looked at me, opened his mouth, and then said nothing. Seeing he had nothing to say, I turned, got into the car, and sat beside my husband. In the rearview mirror, I caught one last glimpse of him. His bony figure collapsing onto the pavement, clutching his head as he broke down and sobbed. My husband, puzzled, murmured, "That poor old man probably came to beg at the luxury neighborhood, hoping to find someone generous. Life must be really hard for him. I'll have the driver send him some money later. It's always good to build a little karma." I leaned into my husband's shoulder and nodded silently. As for all the past hatred and resentment, I'd already let it go long ago. Seeing Ryan like that didn't bring me satisfaction or closure. It didn't sting, but it didn't heal anything either. It just didn't matter anymore. Still, my husband had a kind heart. What I didn't expect was that the next morning our driver returned with strange news. He said he'd gone back the same way later that night, but he couldn't find the old man anywhere. Then, early that morning, the road had been blocked off by police. Several squad cars were surrounding the area. That broken man had jumped into the river and ended his life. My husband sighed heavily. We should have given him the money right then. Maybe he wouldn't have lost hope. But I shook my head. He didn't do that because of money. Some people, I said quietly, eventually have to pay for what they've done. Evil has its own reckoning. Maybe this was simply his fate. I pulled open the curtains and let the warm sunlight flood into the room, soaking into my skin. The future belongs to the next generation. To the young. And I believe they'll do even better. Our country's future.